education, and real-world knowledge about the voiceover industry. It's the Voiceover Gurus podcast.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome back to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. I'm Linda Bruno. Trying to chill out a little bit and relax. The weather here in New York has been super crap. It has been just cloudy. But I'm lucky enough to have a guest with me who's also in a cold environment up in Canada. And it's marketing guru, Marc Scott. Hello.
Yeah, the weather here is super crap too. So but I mean, you said you're up in New York?
I'm in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like literally right across the border from me. So, we're sharing the same crap weather. That's just.
It's frustrating though. It's like dreary. You see it every day. You're like, enough already.
I know. I've been sick for so long and my wife keeps saying, get vitamin D. I'm like, well, tell the sun to shine, for crying out loud. Like we haven't seen the sun since October. Well, how do you want me to get vitamin D?
Yeah. So you're going through this like unfortunate cycle of illness, huh?
Yeah. I don't know what's up with that. I got it, in the end of November, and I had it for about 2.5 weeks. It got better just in time for the holidays, so I was grateful that I was able to get through Christmas. But then I got it again, and I was off for about 2.5 weeks, and then like 2 days ago, back again for the third round. I'm like, for the love of cheese and bacon, I can't do this. Like, I can't be sick every 2 weeks. I'm like, do you have any idea how stupid I look to my agents when I'm booking out every 2 weeks to be sick for another 2 weeks? Like, right. They don't, like, I'm waiting for them to drop me at this point. Like, I know they don't take me seriously anymore. Like, whatever this 2022, 2023 hybrid version of the cold flu plague is that's going on this year. And I know I'm not the only one that's dealing with it either. So it's like, holy.
You're not alone. You're not alone. Well,
that's what 2 years of isolation gets us. We've got no immune systems left, and now we're just dinked. So what are you going to do?
Well, I kind of try to boost my immune system by having a cocktail from time to time. I am having today something from Kingston, Jamaica, because I'm getting married in Jamaica in about 6 weeks.
I thought maybe that was like a psychological play that you did with yourself to get through New York winter, was to drink fruity drinks or tropical drinks from warm places and be like, screw this winter stuff.
No, I'm looking forward to getting out of here mid-March. And so I'm like, that's it. I'm going to bring in the Jamaican rum and have a little cocktail. So I understand your favorite drink happens to be Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, there's very seldom is there one outside of my reach. So I They don't sponsor me yet, but I mean, look, Maybe. If you need an influencer, Dr. Pepper, like seriously.
Now, does it affect your vocal cords at all? Carbonation?
You know what? Even if it did, I don't think it would matter. I think it just adds to the charm and the brand. There's people that sound like they smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. I sound like I drink a bottle of Dr. Pepper a day. I
would worry about that. I mean, I was just talking to Brian Lee the other day, and he was at the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, and he told me he was getting a cookies and cream milkshake. And then he was going to go, this was like at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then he was going to go voice. And then he went into the booth and he started voicing. He started hacking up half a lung. And I'm like, it's because of the cookies and cream shake.
Now, would I drink one in the midst of a live directed session where there's the distinct possibility that I'm going to belch at some point? No, I'm this much more mature than to do that. But has it impacted me? Have I been in self-directed sessions for like really long e-learning modules and questioned why I had that Dr. Pepper before I started recording and had a lot of extra editing to do? Maybe not. I'll never tell.
Right. Good. Well, I took one of your courses. I haven't finished it yet. The follow-up masterclass course.
Okay. Yes.
I'm really, really crappy at following up. I have been my whole career, and I always relied on agents and lazy ass, so
yes.
Yes. So I watched the video, but your course is not one that can be done like you're watching something else at the same time, or you can't work on anything else. You have to like focus on your course. It's like a really good Netflix show. Because you have to take notes. I take notes. I'm like typing notes out.
I want to make sure that people are feeling like they're getting solid value for their investment, right? There's a lot of stuff that's out there that is like, 75% fluff and rah and crap, and 25% good content. I want to give you 90% good content and maybe 10% fluff and rah-rah, or, you know,
Right.
100% good content, hopefully, but you got to always leave a little bit of room for the extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, it just amazes me. So then I have to make a note of the time code in my notes to come back to that point, because then I'll have to go record something or do something. But I have to say it's just filled with really valuable information. So did you start as a voice actor, or did you start in marketing, or what was your beginning? Where were your beginnings?
like so many others, I'm a recovering radio guy. You know, I suffered my final corporate downsize in 2011 and said that was it. The exact words as I was being escorted out of the building, because it's just policy that we escort you out of the building, was from now on, the only idiot I answer to is me. And I didn't know exactly what that meant at the time, but it felt like a really good final parting shot as I was on my way out the door. You know, I sat around in my underwear and felt sorry for myself for a few months, and then realized that in the midst of all of that, I mean, I had always done voiceover on the side, or, you know, for a number of years I had done voiceover on the side, but that voiceover money kept coming in and kept helping to make sure that the rent was getting paid. And, you know, there came a point when I was like, maybe I can do something with this. Maybe if I actually, you know, give it a legitimate effort and try to turn it into a legitimate business, I can actually make it into a legitimate business. And so 2012 was the first year that I decided, like, that was my first full time, where I was like, I'm going to see what I can make happen with this.
So backtracking to the radio, what format?
Geez, I did adult contemporary a lot. I did top 40 for a while. I worked contemporary Christian radio for a while. I worked in country radio. So I did a few different things. I have heard enough Phil Collins and Elton John and Celine Dion to last me 6 lifetimes at this point.
I hear you. I hosted Long Island Love Songs for about 3 years. So Wind Beneath My Wings, you know, stabbed my eye a few times.
Yeah, there's only so many times that you can listen to some of those songs, and that is not a knock. Phil Collins is a legend, but like,
no, and even after all this time too, I can't listen to it.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah, I got fired from. Well, we all got fired. I was in smooth jazz radio in New York City, and they fired 43 of us in a conference call.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was like, you know, and the morning show guy had been there 27 years, and they literally fired him alongside me, the part-timer, and 43 of us. Hey, at 3:00 today, we're switching to a new format, so everybody can reapply for your jobs. Need to contact us. Security has to come so you can get your headphones. And one by one, people were dropping off the call. And I thought, this is freaking brutal. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly, to get fired.
Well, and so for me, I was on a date. I was at the Fallsview Casino in Niagara Falls. It was a Saturday night, and a bunch of my radio colleagues started sending me messages and saying, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "I don't know what's going on. I'm at the casino. I'm having dinner at the buffet. What's going on?" And they're like, "So and so posted that he's starting the drive show on Monday. Or what's going on?" I'm like,
"Oh God,
I have no idea." So I called my boss on Saturday night, like, I don't know, it was like 8:30 or 9:00 at night or something. I'm like, "So what's going on?" He said, "We're going to talk on Monday." I said, "No, we're going to talk tomorrow. You're going to meet me at the office." And so I came to the office and found out what was going on. And what really did it for me, though, was I had only been in the job for about 6 months. And when I came in like 3 weeks before ratings started. And so they told me, "Don't worry about this book. Like, we understand the circumstances are crazy and blah, 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 right? And so you're not going to be judged and everything's going to be fine." So I come in, I give them number 1 across the board, like literally every single possible category. Wow. Number 1. And then I still end up losing my job. And I'm like, if I can deliver number 1 and still not have job security,
that's radio, man.
This is not an industry that I want to be a part of anymore. It just, somewhere along the line, the consultants took over and it just stopped being fun. I mean, I started when the first full-time job that I had in radio, we were live 24/7. Like, that tells you so. Like, when does that ever happen, right? Like, we were legitimately live 24/7 records and CDs and
Splicing
reels
tape. Did you
and
splice? Yeah.
yes,
Yep.
tapes right,
Me
like
too. Carts.
and you had to be on your game constantly, and then the computers came, and then you didn't really have to be on your game anymore. You just and then the consultants came, and they said the only thing people want to hear from you is a 15-second weather update twice an hour. And
Personality
then
went out the window.
and then we got to a point where my job was literally reading cue cards
Yeah.
of pre-written, the same 12 pre-written liners over and over. And I'm like, this is stupid.
I would say I'm a glorified button pusher.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, no wonder automation is taking over. And so, I mean, I did enjoy. I enjoyed my job when I first started. The last station that I was at, it was actually like part of the reason why I got the job was because in my interview, I said, this is the station I plan to retire at. I just like, this is where I wanted to get to. This was my pinnacle, keep me here for 30 years type deal. But the general manager that hired me got let go shortly after I came in. And so new general manager comes in, and what does he want to do? He wants to make his mark and right.
Clean
and so,
house sometimes.
And then we find out later that, the station was getting ready to sell out to a big conglomerate. And so you got to cut the books to make the sale look more whatever. I don't know. It's radio corporate crap, right? Like, so, I mean, I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I haven't listened to terrestrial radio since 2011, since I got let go. I don't even listen anymore because
there's really no reason to.
There's it's got nothing to offer anymore, unfortunately.
I listen to satellite radio, but even that's all pre-taped and a lot of
I've become an old fart now. I sit in the truck and listen to CNBC, the live stream of CNBC. Like it's like, how bad is that? But
so now, how did you become such a master at all the marketing stuff?
Because I really sucked at it in the beginning, like really, really bad. And so, but I also really didn't want to get evicted from my apartment. And so what I came to realize was, if I'm going to make this voiceover thing work, I'm going to have to find a way to make more money at it. And at the time, I like to call it the glory days of online casting, right? It was Voice 123 was still great. There was SmartCast, but it was barely a thing.
Right.
VDC was not considered part of an evil empire at that point. It was still, a good, wholesome player in the game. You could make good money on casting sites if you played them well. And so that was kind of what my plan was. But I also recognized that there was a plateau, right? I was only going to get to a certain point doing online casting. And so I got to a point where I started to ask myself, look, if there are these people who are coming to online casting and they're looking for voice actors, it stands to reason that there's got to be more of these people who are looking for voice actors, but maybe they don't know about online casting. And so maybe there's a way that I can get in touch with them directly. And so I literally started doing Google searches, and I started emailing, sometimes 20, 30, 40 people a day. The emails were horrible. The response was not great. And I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I started studying entrepreneurship, and I started studying marketing, and that looked like a lot of different things. That was listening to podcasts. It was reading books. It was, I took a couple of classes through my community college, like some online courses and stuff like that. Like I was just doing whatever I could to try to get an education, to figure out how to do this better. And, in about 4 years, I built a 6-figure business and had finally started figuring out how it worked, and decided, maybe I can help some other people avoid those first 4 really ugly years when I didn't know what I was doing, and made a fool of myself repeatedly.
Yeah, but it's valuable. Like I said, everything that you teach, and I'm not just saying this because you're in front of me, they're like juicy little gems. I mean, they're things that are applicable today. For folks, and that is so valuable, because I know so many of us really stink at marketing, or really don't want to reach out, don't want to be a pain. We're like, oh, I just want to be. I'm used to the old days of someone else taking care of it for me, and I just focus on my talent, and being charming, But other than that, and now it's like, oh crap, now I have to, extend myself out there and potentially make a fool. But I've gained a lot from the course. I haven't finished it. Like I said, I have to finish it, but it's so good.
What I came to realize at some point was, so voice actors, we operate from the creative side of our brain.
Right.
And the business side is literally, it's the other side of the brain, and it doesn't come as naturally. And what I found out about myself is I actually am a business brain who's trying to figure out the creative side. And so I wouldn't consider myself a voice actor first. I don't operate from that creative side of my brain first. And so the business side comes really easy and really naturally to me, whereas getting in the booth and trying to do some of the acting stuff in certain genres is a lot harder. And so I understand why voice actors don't want to do it, because it's not the natural bent for your brain, right? You want to be in the booth, you want to be recording, performing, acting, doing that thing. You don't want to be sitting at your desk doing emails or social media or whatever. And so it is a little bit harder to convince yourself to do that. But at the same time, you also have to recognize that the industry has gone through multiple iterations now, and we are a long ways away from the glory days of, Don LaFontaine riding in a limo from studio to studio with agent bookings. Like, does that still happen for some voice actors? Yes. Is that what's going to happen for the majority of us? No. If you want to work now, the majority of your work is probably, for most voice actors, is probably going to come from you going out and actively getting it on your own, and casting sites and agents become a supplementary tool to that.
Right. So what do you think? I think I'm trying to remember, you said the average number of times you have to reach out to somebody is what, like 7 for them to like realize that you're even in existence?
Yeah, 7 or 8 times at least sometimes is what it takes. I mean, I gave an example in a class that I recently taught, and this is an extreme example, but it's an example of what can happen. And I showed an actual screenshot of my inbox from the first email that I sent and all of the subsequent emails that I sent through to the first booking. And it was a 9-year time span.
Wow.
9 years from the first time I reached out to this person until the first time that they actually hired me. Now, again, that's an extreme example. I've got lots of other examples of, 2 years, 3 years, multiple communications. I've also got examples of people that I reached out to and they were the exact right person on the exact right day. And, they hired me within a week. Every once in a while that can happen too. But if you think about how much we are inundated with marketing messages today, like, you can't avoid it. It's on your phone, it's on your social media, it's in your inbox, it's on your television, it's on your radio, it's in your streaming services, it's on every website. Tracking pixels are literally following you all around the internet. And that's why when you look at that random thing on Amazon, an ad for that random thing starts popping up on every other website that you ever look at for the rest of your life, right? Like, we are inundated with all of these messages. And because of that, it becomes harder to break through. And so it takes more emails or more communications sometimes to get people to pay attention and accept that you are real.
I find this all so overwhelming, though, because there's so many different channels and ways that you can reach out to someone. It's like, should you pick a couple and focus on that?
I think that's actually the beauty of it, is that there are so many ways, because it means that you get to decide what works for you. And so I know voice actors who are absolutely crushing the world of cold calling, like 40% response rates on their cold calls, which is just insane.
God, I can't cold call. I hate
You
it.
couldn't pay me money to do cold calling. Like, it's not my thing. But that's the beauty of this. If you want a cold call, cold call.
Yeah.
If you love using LinkedIn, you can build a business off of LinkedIn. If you are an in-person networker and you live in a place where you have the ability to do a lot of in-person networking, you can build relationships and build a client base from doing in-person networking. If it's email, then use email. Like, there are so many different avenues that are available to us now that it does give you the ability to pick the ones that work best for you. And so I've tried all the different forms of social media, and I have found work through Twitter. I've found work through Facebook. I've found it through Instagram. I've found it through LinkedIn. But I've also decided that LinkedIn is my favorite place. And so I spend way more effort on LinkedIn now than I do on Twitter. But that might be talk to Jun Yoon, brilliant voice actor who is playing Twitter like nobody's business. Like, that is his game, and he's killing it on Twitter. And so that's where he spends all of his time. So it really does, it can feel overwhelming if you look at it as a big picture, but if you look at it as there's so many different options, let me pick the one that's best for me, all of a sudden it becomes, oh, this is actually really nice. I can play to my strengths here.
Yeah. I wound up shifting things a bit because I use Nimble for my CRM.
Yep.
And, being in this business for as long as I have a ton of contacts and a ton of people in there. I mean, half of which who the heck knows if they're even in business, or the relationship is withered because I am so terrible at follow-up. So now I've gone the route of, I have an assistant that helps me find production companies and viable contacts, of
Yep.
using the workflows to
Yep.
organize, like a good lead goes into this pipeline, and then I research that, because otherwise my head's going to explode and then I don't want to do any of it. I just curl up into a ball and lay in the corner.
It does become more challenging the larger your database gets, because it's harder to keep up with people. But
I want to
again, that's where,
vomit. I want to destroy it all. I want to start
yeah.
from like scratch.
Well, but that's where I say you got to prioritize then at that point, right? When the larger that your database gets, the reality is I do not churn through my entire database nearly as often as I used to back in the day. But that's because I've got such a big database now. I can spend more time focusing on just clients and just prospects, and not having to worry as much about people who are leads. And so always make
Yeah.
sure, no matter what, that you're prioritizing communication with your clients first. Don't let them forget you, because if you let your clients forget you, you are leaving money on the table, no question. And the
Right.
prospects that haven't hired you yet but have expressed an interest, you don't want to lose contact with them either, because they're the next closest thing to a paid booking. And so if
Mhm.
you prioritize your database that way, it becomes a lot easier to, and a little less overwhelming. Don't look at your database, and if there's 5,000 people in there, feel like you've got to constantly maintain communication with 5,000 people.
Yeah.
I've got several thousand people in my database, but I'm consistently maintaining communication with a few hundred, because those are
Okay.
the clients and the prospects. The
Okay.
other leads that are in there, those are the ones that I revisit when there's time, or when it seems appropriate, or whatever. They're there. It's not that I'm never contacting new people. I'm just at a point now where the bulk of my effort is on those prospects and clients.
And now, how do you manage it though? So, say you go through a period where you're working all the time. I mean, you've got project after project. I mean, you still have to try to keep that ball rolling.
Yep.
I mean, what do you do? Like, do you isolate a time of day that you dedicate to the reach outs to the? I mean, that's my problem.
I don't know that there is a voice actor, if they're being honest with themselves, unless you're, I don't know, JMC maybe. I don't know if there's a voice actor on the planet who is legitimately so busy, so consistently, that they can't find half an hour in a day to send a couple of emails. Like, even when I'm feeling slammed and doing back-to-back sessions for different things, I can still find half an hour to contact even 2 or 3 people. And
Yeah.
so I think part of it is perception, right? When we're busy, the very first thing that we dump is marketing, because of how we feel about marketing, right? And so
Yeah.
it feels really good to be able to say, I'm so busy, I don't have time for marketing. But the reality is, if you're so busy that you don't have time for marketing, then the next cycle in your business is going to be, I don't have any clients.
Because I
What am
didn't
I
market.
supposed to do? Right.
Mhm.
And so I think that no matter what, I think there's always an opportunity for you to spend half an hour contacting a couple of people, because even contacting 10 people a week is better than contacting 0 people a week.
Right.
But then the other thing that I've done too is I've also gotten to a point where, because my business is growing and I have a pretty stable income, I can afford to do things like run LinkedIn ads. And so I might run a LinkedIn ad campaign for 30 days that's running literally 24/7 for 30 days. And that is becoming a lead generator for me. So
Hmm.
where I may not be able to actively reach out to as many people via email, at
Yeah.
least I can stay in front of people through targeted LinkedIn advertising to a very specific and niche audience. So there's always something going on that is
Right.
keeping me in front of potential new clients.
Right. So so 30 minutes a day is a pretty good base to, I don't know, it's a chunk that's chewable. We'll put it that way. Right. It doesn't feel like it's the whole elephant. We're just eating a little piece to keep it
Sorry,
going.
I lost you there for a second. It cut
Oh,
out.
I was saying that 30 minutes a day seems like a doable amount where it's not overwhelming, and we just take it in bite-sized chunks so it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's crazy
Yep.
and a crazy part of your day.
30 minutes is nothing. I mean, and I don't know, even when I'm in the midst of a giant e-learning project, it feels like it's going to go on forever and never going to end. Somewhere in the middle of all, like, I'm not ever actually recording for 8 hours a day. I don't think my voice would survive if I was
mine either.
actually so to take that 30 minutes and send a few emails, and this is where having a CRM helps, because if you've got a CRM and it's well set up and your CRM is going to be organized, then you can focus on maybe some clients that I always tell people, if there are clients in your database that you have not had communication with in the last 30 to 60 days, that is priority one. That's where you start. Any client that you haven't communicated with in more than a month or two, hit them first. Once you've worked your way through that, doing a couple a day, then start focusing on your prospects. Any prospects that you haven't had communication with in more than a month or two, start working your way through that. And so just a couple a day, until you get through that really busy stretch. Because the other thing is, we all go through busy stretches, but they're not generally busy stretches that stretch on for, months on end.
Right.
And I mean, if you're in that position, well done.
Right.
Hire an assistant and get them to do the marketing for you. You're obviously making bank and you can afford it. But for most of us, I think we just allow it to become an excuse to cut out that thing that we don't enjoy doing, which is the marketing.
Like I said, when I got very spoiled starting out early on and having the agents and really putting back burner, not even thinking about these aspects. And then I had about a 10-year period where I was working constantly and did really well at Disney, things like that. Yep. But then, clients start to go away and, like they shut down the network in Asia, everything went streaming. So, 14 years of me working for Disney gone like that. And then I'm sitting there going, okay, now what? Here I was like, you get comfortable and you're like, oh yeah, another job's coming. COVID hits. I was doing tons of automotive that crashed to that. Retail, a lot of retail. I'm still with some of my clients that are struggling to, get things back up and running so they can do some advertising. They have so much product that they have they have too many customers and too little product. So, those types of things happen in life and you don't realize it. And the next thing you know, you're like, okay, I got to get off my ass and I got to go market.
I mean, I did a talk before COVID hit, 2019. I did a bunch of conferences and I did a talk called the 5 Essential Goals for Your Voiceover Business. And the one word that will kill it all. And the one word that will kill it all is complacency. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's when you get to that point when you are busy, work is coming in consistently, you get comfortable, and in that comfort, you become complacent.
Yes.
But look, I mean, to use the classic farmer analogy, if the farmer doesn't plant new seeds every spring, it's not like there's going to be a new field full of corn just popping up spontaneously every fall. Like you have to keep going, right? You have to consistently go in. Now, that being said, there's a difference between growing a business and maintaining a business. And so that's where, I might tell somebody that's starting out and trying to grow their voiceover business, you got to be contacting 50 or 100 people every week, depending on what you're trying to grow to.
Right.
Somebody that's got a well-established business, I might say you've got to be contacting, 10 or 20 people a week. And so it's not like you got to have the same numbers, but you've still always got to have something. I mean, I had my most lucrative e-learning client, which was a healthy 5 figures every year, go away in the fall because like everybody else, their stock price went through the toilet and they had to make decisions and they had to make cutbacks and they did not want to bring their e-learning in-house, but it was something that they didn't have a choice because of the financial situation that they were in. Now, are they gone forever? I don't know. But if I wasn't always bringing some new people into the mix, that would have hurt a lot worse.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like imagine being in a position where you lose a 5-figure a year client and you got nothing else coming up behind them.
Right.
That's a scary position to be in when you've got a wife and 3 kids and a mortgage to pay for.
Yep, exactly. It's the continual, talking to, Brian Lee?
I don't think I do.
Okay. So he's a very good, one of my best friends, and I've known him since Fort Myers days in Florida, back in 94. But he is probably one of the top promo guys in the country. And he's been one of the top promo guys for like 20 years. I mean, you would hear him and you'd know.
Okay.
And we just had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was basically saying that his money, it's the contractual clients, the monthlies that keep him going. Yep. That's where the money is. And for him, he focuses on news because you're always going to need news.
Yep.
Everyone's going to need it. And so for him, he makes sure he has his contracts. He makes sure he maintains those relationships, because other than, the rest of us, we go for this job here, that job there, and it's tough. It's tough. You're hoping you're going to get something's going to be long-term, but that's not
nobody wants to hear this. And I'm not trying to generalize completely, but the reality is that most voice actors are pursuing sexy credits, right? So we're pursuing those big national gigs because they give us, Fortune 500 company names to put on our website. And it's a big sexy credit that we can tell everybody about. And hey, listen for my spot on such and such or whatever. And right. Nothing wrong with that. That's what a lot of people are going after. It's that, or it's, AAA video games, and everybody wants to be the voice on the next, whatever it is, Blizzard game or whatever. I'm not a gamer. I don't know. But, those are the types of things that they go after. I recently, I went across the border in November. Is the first time that I crossed the border since 2019 because of COVID and all the restrictions and everything, right? So I crossed the border from Ontario into Michigan, and the border agent says to me, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a voice actor. And he said, what have I heard you on? And I said, nothing.
Right.
And he kind of looks at me and I'm like, unless you are doing internal employee training for such and such a company, I'm like, I'm sorry, you probably never heard, right? And it's completely humiliating for me to have to do that. But at the same time, all of that unsexy, non-broadcast corporate work that's bringing me 6 figures a year and paying my mortgage and putting money into my retirement account and making sure my kids are going to be able to go to college, like, keep pursuing your credits. There's nothing wrong with that. But the money, if you want to make the money consistently, you have to look at some of those other things where there's more consistent work, because you might land one national campaign in a year, or you might be an incredibly gifted, exceptional talent who's exactly the it voice for 2023. And maybe you land 3 or 4 national campaigns, but next year you might not land one.
No, it's keeping
and
it
if all you're doing is pursuing national to national to national, there's a big void in between where you're not working and you're not recording. And for me, that's what gets filled with all of that unsexy stuff that nobody wants to talk about because it's not sexy. I don't know. Paying my mortgage, that is sexy. That does it for me.
I have a physical studio here. So it's a production studio. So I have students that physically come here to learn. And the first thing I will say 70% of the time, I want to do animation. And I'm like, okay, I'm not your person to learn that. Secondly, you need to go to acting school. You need to, it's not what you think it is. I said, if you want to learn how to do the boring stuff that actually makes you money, I can help you with that. But it's like suddenly, corporate video. It's like that, come on. But it is, there's that sexy attitude of like, I want to be the voice of something. I want to be a cartoon. It's like, it doesn't.
Yep. But I mean, that it's a perspective thing too, right? I mean, for me, I'm more interested in making sure that my bills get paid and my retirement fund gets built. I don't care. If I never go on Facebook and have the ability to say, I just booked a national for such and such or whatever, my career is not going to feel any less to me.
Right.
I don't give a flying fart about credits. I care about bills paid and money in the bank. Yeah,
me too. My reward is getting paid.
Yep.
And that's about it. All right. So random question for you. What do you think is the best app you use, like for business? That is the most affordable, but gives you the best return on your investment?
Wave. I would say Wave.
Is that bookkeeping?
Yeah, it's bookkeeping, invoicing. My accountant turned me on to Wave probably about 5 years ago now, maybe even longer. And he said, use this. It's going to make life easier for both of us. I'm like, all right, whatever. So it's free. So it doesn't get much more affordable than that.
Affordable. Mm-hmm.
And I think that it will probably always be free because they have other monetization strategies built into their system.
Mm-hmm.
So the basics, there's no need for them to monetize that because they sell support packages. They sell payroll packages, they do credit card processing, so they get a cutoff of credit card processing, right? So they've got monetization strategies built in. So the basic bookkeeping, so I can go in and I can send invoices. Clients can click a button in those invoices and pay via credit card, and I can put all of my other expenses, my my electric bill, my internet bill, my cell phone bill, whatever. I can put all of my expenses and everything into the accounting portion of it. And then at the end of the year, my accountant clicks a link and has everything he needs to do my taxes, and it's
that's the
free,
best part.
and it's easy, and it's beautiful. And it's really easy for me to know at any given time. I can tell you exactly how much I've earned. I can tell you exactly how much has gone out. I can tell you what genres are making me the most money, or what clients are my best clients, or what my biggest expenses are, right? So I can know my numbers, which I think is really, really important to be able to know your numbers. But yeah, I mean, there's a few apps that I don't think I could run my business without, but that's probably been one of the biggest game changers for me. And like I said, it's free.
I'm afraid to leave QuickBooks. I think they've got me like with this shadow over me, and they keep raising the prices, which is insane.
Yeah, you should try free.
Yeah, try free with Wave or Waves?
Waveapps.com. It's WAVEAPPS, waveapps.com.
Yeah, I'll check it out and see what they say. Okay, here's another question for you. What's the most expensive piece of equipment you have in your studio?
That U87 probably is the most expensive.
Nice.
That 416 is probably the second most
Number
expensive.
two.
Actually, no, my MacBook, my iMac that's out in the it's out in the office area. That might be the second most expensive.
Okay, good. And if God forbid, your studio set fire, and this is not including family or anybody that means anything to you, what are the three things that you would grab?
What would I grab out of my studio?
Yeah.
I would grab my U87 because I could probably never afford another one of those ever again. I would risk my life probably for that. And I was a firefighter for 17 years, so I have a level of training that allows me to do that with reduced risk. But I would say I would grab my U87. I would grab my iMac, and I have an external hard drive that has all of my recordings going back a decade. And so I would probably try to get a hold of that as well. Okay. Everything else is, whatever, replaceable.
Yeah. Is BS. All right. Well, those are very responsible answers. I like that.
I don't have a lot of like tchotchke stuff, or you know what? I do have a signed baseball bat, a signed Red Sox baseball bat. So maybe I could sacrifice the iMac for the baseball bat, because the iMac is backed up to the cloud, so I wouldn't lose the data. So that's the U87, the signed baseball bat, and the external hard drive. Those would be the three things.
That's solid. Very nice. Well, this is great. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to get to know you and hear about your history. Here's my final question. I keep telling you I'm going to give you a final question, but this is it. How the heck, because you have your family, you do voiceovers, and you do the coaching. How the heck do you balance all of this?
Some days better than others.
Yeah. I mean, do you like the night before plan out and say, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow? And do you time block? Do you do anything fancy, or do you just roll with it?
I think probably one of the best things that I ever did was when I implemented Calendly. And if you're not using Calendly, for most voice actors, I think you're missing out. But what's beautiful about Calendly is I figure I gained back at least 2 hours a week from Calendly, just because I'm not going back and forth with people trying to schedule things.
So they're booking you. They're finding a slot when they can book.
So it's not like, hey, can you do this date? Nope. Okay, another email. What about this date? Nope, can't do that one. Okay, here's 3 more options. Nope, can't do that. And so it's all the back and forth emails are gone.
But what do you think about, like, what's the percentage of live sessions that you do now?
So I don't do a lot of live directed sessions, but where Calendly comes in for me is because people can book on my calendar up to 2 months in advance. I've always got a pretty good overview of what my coming weeks are going to look like. Okay. And so once I get some of those priority things filled in, coaching sessions, directed sessions, whatever, that shows me where all the empty blocks are in my calendar that allows me to kind of fill in with all the other things that I have to do. But then I also, like, for example, you can't book me for coaching before 11 a.m. because that gives me a couple hours in the morning to get done things that I need to get done.
Sure.
And I cannot be booked on Tuesdays. Like Tuesdays, that's my day that I leave to do whatever I need to do to get ahead on my podcast, or do a big job that I've got to get done, or if I'm working on a new course or whatever.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
Tuesday is just never available for anybody to book for anything. You can't book me after Generally after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so same thing, right? I can get some stuff done in the morning, then I can fit in coaching sessions and all that sort of stuff during the day. And then after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can wrap up the day if there's any other session, recording jobs that have come in during the day or whatever. And so I kind of work on that sort of a basis. But then I'm way planned out. Like I'm working on stuff for the end of the year already. Like I'm always thinking ahead, for particularly when it comes to the coaching side of things. What webinar am I going to do? What am I, what does my next 3 months of my podcast look
That's
like,
great.
and all that sort of stuff. I did not always used to be that way. And I still struggle with it, but it's been a huge difference maker, because if I can plot out several months in advance, I give myself a little bit more time to get things done. Now, that does not mean, like, my last webinar that I did, I finished building it about an hour before I went live to teach it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So sometimes that still happens. 9 out of 10 times, if I have a new course that I'm putting up for sale, it's for sale before it's been built. Which actually creates accountability for me to make sure that I get it done. But generally, I've at least got a roadmap of what I want it to look like, or the main points that I want to cover off or whatever. And maybe I just need to finish building out slides and stuff like that. But so I would say, I guess that is, to a degree, that's time blocking, right? Keeping my mornings free to do some things, afternoons free to do some things, fitting coaching in where I can. But it does get tough though. Like, there are days, so because I've been sick, the first 2 weeks of January, I couldn't do anything because I couldn't talk at all.
Oh my God.
And so when you lose 2 weeks of pre-scheduled 8-hour days, that's 2 weeks of pre-scheduled 8-hour days that you have to get put back into the calendar. And so, there were, the last couple of weeks of January, I was working sometimes until 10 o'clock at night, because I need to get everything fit back in again. And it's not my favorite thing to do, but you got to do what you got to do to make up for it. Thankfully, I'm sick again now, but not nearly as bad as I was in January. I'm like, please, Lord, don't let me lose my voice again.
You can speak. You sound like
I can
sound
speak.
good from here.
I canceled some stuff yesterday. I was pretty rough yesterday, but at least I don't have like 2 weeks of dates to make up again or whatever. But that's the big thing, is I think being able to block
planning
out
so far ahead. That's impressive. See, I'm not with that at all. I go literally by inspiration. I'm like, oh, I want to do this for the podcast. Oh, I want to do this for the workout. And I know I need to be more organized with it, but it's just like, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning with the ideas, and I'm on my phone and going into Todoist, and I'm like typing in all my stuff. But getting, saying, okay, this a half hour here, I think that will work for me to try to get a little more organized with.
I still have a lot of wake ups at 4 a.m. with inspiration for ideas, and those things are getting written into my notes and stuff like that. But one of the things that I started doing a number of years ago, which has been really big for me, is my wife's family is in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is about 8 hours away from us. And so when we go to visit family, grandma's got a 2-bedroom house and it's way too small. And so I stay at a hotel.
Yeah.
And the advantage to that is, during the day, I am in a hotel by myself, where there's nothing for me to do except focus on whatever I want to focus on. And so, people make fun of me because I post pictures on social media of me in a hotel room with a big flip chart. Like, I literally travel with a big giant paper flip chart.
Do you really?
I do, 100%. And I take that. It stand on the easel. It stands as tall as me, right? It's like, it's big. It all collapses down or whatever, but it opens up pretty big. But I travel with that thing, and that we usually go up just after Christmas, and we're there for about a week and a half or whatever. And lots of times I will spend that week mapping out as much of my year as possible, like big stuff. Like, okay, I'm going to do, I want to do 4 premium webinars a year. And so those are going to get dropped in here, here, and here. And I want to do 4 free webinars a year, and they're going to get dropped in here, here, and here. And Playbook comes out in January and April and September. And so I write that in, and I'm scheduled for VO Atlanta, and Val Kelly's asked me about doing Mavo. And so I can drop all of those things in. And before long, I've got a pretty good overview of what the bigger things in my year are going to look like at the end of December. I've already got kind of a plan. Now, that doesn't mean that I know exactly what each one of those webinars is going to be at the end of December, but at least I know in February,
Mm-hmm.
in May, in whatever, right? There's going to be webinar. And so I can start. So then when those random 4 a.m. ideas hit me of, oh, I should do a webinar about this, I've got a time slot already scheduled where I can drop that in and know this is where that's going to happen.
You're very smart, Marc. You're very smart. Let me tell you.
I mean, it sounds good in theory. Like I said, it doesn't always get practiced quite to the degree that I would like, but at least the plan is there and the effort gets put forward to try and make it happen, because otherwise there's no way. There's no way that I could keep up with it all.
I see all the content you put out, and you go on the podcast, and a lot of people have heard from you and know you. And I look and I'm like, how is this guy freaking doing this? You're like my hero with the time management.
So as you say that, I'll bring myself down a notch for you. It's Tuesday afternoon when we're sitting here. My podcast comes out every Thursday. A new episode comes out. I do not have Thursday's episode done yet. It will probably get done tomorrow, probably tomorrow night. So Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I have a map of topics that I want to talk about, but because I was sick for the first couple weeks in January and I was sick a couple weeks in December, I fell behind. Mm-hmm. Right. Usually I try to keep my podcast about 3 weeks ahead, 4 weeks ahead. I've lost all of that because of being sick.
So now, production wise, you probably work with a template, you set something up, and then you fill with content.
And so now, because of that, now I am not ahead. And so, Wednesday night, I will be in the booth recording an episode that will, go live on Thursday morning. Nobody will ever know. They'll be like, wow, I just don't understand how this guy does all this. Well, let me tell you, this week, I'm going to do it by staying up late on Wednesday night and recording and editing and, getting an episode dropped in. And so look, sometimes that stuff still happens and that's okay. But
you are human.
Yeah. As much as I can plan ahead for things, I certainly do try, because I don't like, once upon a time, I didn't mind being under the pressure crunch quite as much, but now I like to sleep. More than I did in my 20s. And so
I know
I need to sleep more than I did when I was in my 20s.
With so much responsibility too, it's just better to be organized. Yeah. Well, you've inspired me now. Now I have things I want to go do.
I'll tell you, one of the best things that you can do from a podcasting standpoint is I have an Excel spreadsheet that is mapped out for the entire year, episode numbers, episode air dates, and then a guest and topic block. And my commitment to myself since last year, because I've always recorded my podcast, it's always been like the last minute. And so I started doing this in the second half of last year. And that was to always be no less than a month ahead for topics and guests, but always trying to be at least a quarter ahead.
Okay.
And that takes so much pressure off. It really does. It takes so much pressure off. And one of the ways that I have gone about doing that is by using themes. So, for example, at the end of the year last year, I did my online casting series. So I come up with the theme of online casting, but from that theme, I think I was able to get 6 or 7 different episodes and interviews that all tied back to the theme of online casting.
Oh, wow.
So rather than having to try to come up with a new idea and a new episode every week, if I can come up with a theme, this theme, the first theme is going to be online casting. Maybe the next theme is going to be, producers. Maybe the next theme is bringing in influential people, from different genres or whatever. But you find some themes, those themes that allow you to break down into more individual episodes. But that makes it so much easier to get ahead. But from a podcaster, always try to be at least a quarter ahead with your ideas and try to be a month ahead with your episodes. That way, when things happen, like you get sick or whatever,
right? Things happen.
You're not just shutting the show down, right?
Right. Very good advice, especially for me. Thank you. Being a podcaster. Well, I appreciate you joining me, Marc. It was really, really nice virtually meeting you. And thank you too for including me with your gifts of Christmas. I'm going to be working with one student who actually won a lesson with us. And that's fun.
That is always fun. That's something that people make fun of me, but that starts getting organized in July.
Really?
In order to pull that together. I mean, what did we end up giving away? Like something like $19,000 in prizes. Like that doesn't happen on a whim, right? And so that's one of those things that starts happening in July. I start kind of mapping out who I'd like to talk to. and then start building out a list. And I start sending out emails probably late September, early October to start collecting. And now it's getting to a point where people are reaching out to me, like the day after the contest saying, can I get in for next year or whatever?
Yeah.
But, things like that. I mean, if I was not organized to some degree, stuff like that 12 voiceover gifts of Christmas would never happen.
Well, I know I want to be a part of it in whatever way you have open for for this coming. It's already 2023. So please keep me in mind.
I will put you on the list.
Yay. So you have two websites, right? You've got your Marc Scott voiceover and then Marc Scott coaching.
Yeah. Because I'm a glutton for punishment and I'm not smart enough to put them all together in one central hub. There's Marc Scott voiceover for the voiceover, marcscottcoaching.com for the coaching, and then VOpreneur.com for the podcast.
Oh,
again, because I wasn't smart. I'm the marketing guy, but sometimes you can't see what's right in front of your face. And so you screw up your own business. And so I wasn't smart enough to put all three of them into one central hub. So now I get to maintain 3 different websites. So that was
okay. Well, that makes sense because I wasn't too familiar with the VOpreneur. The rest I knew. So, okay. Well, this is good to know. But thank you again. It was great meeting you. And
absolutely.
That wraps it up for another episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. We have a limited amount of workouts happening. Join Alyssa and I to coach you for 2 hours, very affordably, $65. You get 2 coaches, and it's only limited to 6 people. So you get a lot of attention for the workouts. And we'll see you again real soon. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Real talk about the voiceover industry. Learn more about us and get coaching at voiceover.guru.